focus on yourself. Those 3 words were repeated to me by friends and relatives whenever I got too caught up in someone else. I've been guilty, at times very guilty, of investing too much of myself in other people. Sometimes I would fall too hard for someone romantically, or I would spend more time trying to help a friend through their problems than trying to help myself through my own problems. But I had no idea what focusing on myself even meant, or how to do that. I was still seeing friends all the time, still falling too hard occasionally, still being surrounded by familiarity everywhere, every day. That all changed in 2022, when I did research in Japan for the summer and studied abroad in Spain for the fall. Those were the first times I had been out of the US, and phone calls and texts with friends and family could only do so much. In fact, the first time I entered my apartment in Japan, I had an anxiety attack. I happened to be the most isolated out of all the tech students on this research experience, and it set in right as I stepped through the door. The closest tech students were multiple train and bus rides away at the very least. My family was 13 time zones away. I could not read any of the signs outside my window. I was sitting there on the bare mattress, desperately trying to hold these feelings in. I kept searching through my phone for someone, anyone, to call, but it was 2 a.m. back in the US. My anxiety about being alone was being confirmed in real time by the fact that I was truly, truly alone. I couldn't even think about that word, alone. The first week of living on my own, because I would almost immediately start tearing up, even in public places. While I was abroad, I went to lab for research or to class and hung out with the other tech students every now and then, but I still felt stuck. Most of my time was spent either locally commuting or simply in my apartment alone. I couldn't call my friends or my family that much either. As I said, they were asleep most of the time I was awake. All I felt was stuck in a country where I knew no one. And while I was able to get out of the apartment every so often, luckily enough sometimes for entire weekends, I didn't have the resources to be taking weekend trips all the time. I was just stuck. People had told me before to focus on myself, but now I really had nothing to focus on but myself. Since I had never done this before, tackling it head on, along with the other challenges of being in a completely different country, was daunting, to say the least. Thankfully, instead of finding someone to keep me company, I found something: music. And it not only helped keep me company, but it transformed the way I think about myself. In particular, 3 albums marked significant transition points during my time abroad, and I'd like to share them with you today. Now keep in mind, I will be giving abridged analyses of these albums since I have a time limit, and I can't pick apart every song in front of you for an hour. I know. I'm sorry. Without further ado, the first album is called You See For Yourself by IDK. I started listening to this in 2021, but the new context of Solitude I faced in Japan enabled me to focus on the lyrics and actually understand IDK's message. The song that initially honed this focus is an interlude called Temporary Love. The song starts off with a conversation between 2 people, where the first person asks, "Do you think women are looking for a replacement of their father figure when they're in a relationship with a pimp?" Just think about it for a second. But also, like, what? This question's so out of left field. I don't think anyone expected to hear this on the album. I certainly didn't. Either way, the second person responds, "No. I think that all of us are just searching for love we ain't never had before." This line stuck out to me and really got the gears turning. This question was so misogynistic, and the answer completely flipped the question on its head. I had never even thought about this as a possible answer to this question I had barely considered. It's not about someone giving this hypothetical woman love. No, it's her searching for it. It caught me so off guard that I began to think about what kinds of love I might be searching for, what kinds of love IDK might be searching for, what kinds of love we might all be searching for. I thought about what I might even be missing now, a continent away from everything I found familiar. As I listened to the album, I began to identify 3 types of love that IDK was missing and that I was suffering a lack of as well during my time abroad. External, internal, and parental. It's my mom and dad. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. IDK addresses all 3 of these loves on the final track of the album, Cry in Church, the emotional climax of the album. The featured artist, 7 Streeter, sings about external love. Rather be a poor man with a little affection, everybody want to feel special. I mean, yeah, who doesn't want to feel special? In this case, it refers to external love, most likely from a romantic partner, but it can mean from friends as well. Next, IDK sings about internal love, the love for himself, on the chorus. I'd rather be good inside than live in happy on the outside. Then, on the first verse, I'm my only lover, I'm my only friend. Working on my flaws, I think I'm clocking in. I'm my only weakness, I hope I'm off on the weekends. A lot of lyrics, I know. But after about a month of spending the majority of my waking hours by myself, I realized that going home was my clocking in. Ironic. I now had to live with myself. I was my only friend at times, constantly working on myself to try to be good on the inside. We all want to be good on the inside, right? Like, duh, you spend the most time with yourself. Why wouldn't you want to work yourself out as soon as you can to feel more genuinely happy? I know I'm making this sound obvious, but I want everyone to appreciate how incredibly long of a time it can take to figure that out for yourself. I was only able to figure it out for myself because I was in solitude so much, and I could relate to these lyrics. During the final verse, IDK addresses his deceased mother to talk about parental love. I wish you would talk to me nicely. I probably would love better. I wish you would read to me every night. I probably would read more. And all of this pain on my back gonna be having me looking like Igor. His mother not showing him love influenced his development and his love for others, as well as causing him years of pain. IDK echoes this further once Cry in Church transitions into the spoken word ending Closure, where he leaves a voicemail to his mother. We should all focus on understanding something that most of us can agree on, and that's the want for love. If his mother had been able to give him more love, he thinks with that, maybe he would have treated women a little bit better. Maybe he would have had a little bit more trust for other people. These lyrics put me in his shoes and help me see the world from his perspective for a moment. We all want love. If someone shows you love, it will multiply with how you yourself show it. I gained a newfound appreciation of my family and the love they gave me. They did talk to me nicely. They did read to me when I was younger. I only wished I were home to tell them all this in person. With this in mind, the next album that helped me during my time abroad is Candy Drip by Lucky Day. He sings about being in the throes of a relationship with a woman and ultimately arrives at a balanced conclusion on the final song, Ego. Loving someone and loving yourself is a balance. It's that external and internal love I was talking about earlier. You can be too focused on yourself that you can't show love to someone else, or you're in too deep and you can't take a step back to show yourself some love. Lucky is in the second situation where he's forgotten to keep himself afloat. He sings Selfless. I learned to love myself less, and now I felt it. Sometimes my heart gets helpless. As I've said before, I've had situations where I've been too into someone or too invested in helping a friend. I also may have related to these lyrics a little hard because I may or may not have been in one of those situations during my time in Japan, which I will neither confirm nor deny. Thank you for asking. Either way, I stopped looking out for myself, which is unhealthy for both me and whomever I was too invested in. Lucky is just now becoming self-aware of this behavior in his own relationship and is working to change it. Girl, I want you all the time. I've been loving on you blind, and that ain't a free throw, working on my ego. On some of the final lyrics from the album, he concludes, no one can break me, no one can make me, you're my ego. No one can save me. No one can change me. You're my ego. Loving someone and love is not a free thing that you can just do blindly. Here, Lucky is taking back his self-control, his ego, healthily. He decides who he gives his energy to. He is declaring that he's putting his ego aside for her. And of course, as I was crying along to this one in my shower in Japan, I was able to repeat it to myself by singing along. No one can break me. No one can make me. Similarly, only you can save you. Only you can change you. No one else can do that for you. At the height of my listening to Candy Drip, I flew back home for my painfully short 3 weeks of reuniting with my friends and family. I missed everyone so much, and the normalcy of being with them made leaving again all the more difficult as I flew to Spain for round 2. I started sharing an apartment with landlords who, to put it very nicely, set a new world record for disagreeing with me about anything and everything. While I was physically living in an apartment with other people, these landlords still somehow, in their excellence, made me feel more alone than when I was living by myself in Japan. As October of that semester rolled around, I stayed trapped in that tiny room by classwork, grad apps, and avoiding interacting with the landlords. I could feel my mental health slipping. Then, at the end of that awful October, Smino released Love for Rent. This was the album that made everything click for me. The first song I'll highlight, Defibrillator, has a simple but repeated chorus, but man, did I need to hear it. I'll be loved when none's around. Everyone who had ever shown me love was an ocean away, but I finally took control of my own feelings and allowed myself to love myself when no other love was around. I mean, I had always thought I was all right. This marked a turning point in letting myself experience healthy self-love. I had realized that I had looked for validation from external sources my entire life. Parents, classmates, friends, romantic interests. I had never thought about reaching inside and showing myself love. So I started doing things that would consciously fulfill me, which in Spain usually meant an investment in some ice cream or buying a basketball to play on a nearby court. And as the landlords continued to just go above and beyond in the aggravating me department, and as finals and grad app deadlines drew even closer, the lows started getting less low. Smino applies this self-love mindset to the final song on the album, We and Lovey. Give so much of myself to others, I'm running out of self for my own stuff. But as long as you put you first, we don't gotta rehearse, I'ma do me. IDK and Lucky Day had been inching me closer and closer and closer towards this conclusion, but these lyrics gave me that final push across the finish line. I realized that I could do both, have the capacity to love someone and still maintain love and energy for myself. Healthy relationships are formed on this balance of external and internal love. This internal love carried me across those finals, deadlines, and landlord squabbles to my return home, where my self-love joined the support system I already had here. So, now that I've talked about me, how does this relate to all of you? Well, I cannot overstate this. Self-love is so important. You are in control of yourself. You are the number one in your life. Everybody want to feel special? That's on me, baby. I got that right here, on lock, down pat, 100%. Self-love was such a super hard lesson for me to learn and integrate into my life, and I'm still learning it even now. During those tough times, though, I can fall back on the love I have for myself to keep me going. I now know how to properly focus on myself because I love myself. But don't fall into the trap of being too self-centered. I said healthy self-love. But what does that look like? It starts with self-care. Proper hygiene, eating well, sleeping well, taking some time to breathe. That is an index card from my room that reminds me Just take deep breaths, force of habit, and it works. There are more overt ways of showing your self-love too. Go outside for a walk, get some exercise. You can journal. I journal, not as often as I should, but I do. Journaling isn't the only way to do this, but it allows me to acknowledge my emotions and areas for growth without letting myself be defined by them. This is one of the barriers to my own self-love that I managed to push through while abroad. On the flip side, sometimes you gotta hype yourself up a little. Celebrate your accomplishments. That test grade comes in, and you did better than you expect. Oh, yes, baby! Genius! That's all me! Right here. It sounds really silly, but I promise it really helps. Self-love also means being self-aware and knowing how you operate. For example, I've learned that I'm most productive when I'm in my room, got some tea going, some nice music, my lamps on, it's just great. Sometimes it means saying no when you have to. Sometimes, if you can believe it, it means being by yourself, taking a step back to just take some deep breaths, recharge, just vibe for a bit. Despite hating my solitude, I learned that sometimes it's okay to be alone. Solitude doesn't have to be lonely. Knowing how you operate also includes the music you listen to if you choose to do so. No matter what we listen to, music is powerful and it can teach us things we never even guessed of ourselves. My music taste has definitely shifted over the past year, and that's okay. We're all growing, we're all changing. The least we can do is love ourselves during that process. And who knows, maybe finding your music will help you find yourself along the way. Thank you very much.